So one of the more pressing announcements that we've seen over the last 2 months is a series of rate increases from the Bank of Canada. How has that impacted the real estate market in Ontario or the Greater Toronto Area? Is it putting downward pressure on prices?
Sure. I'll just take a step back to sort of set the stage in terms of, how we turned the page from 2021 into 2022. And, if you look back at, December 31st, we were seeing, the lowest level of active listings on TREB's MLS system in a couple of decades. We had 3,200 residential listings on our system. And so market conditions were extremely tight. We were seeing a lot of competition between buyers and double-digit year-over-year price gains. And that really continued through January and February. But then we started to see the Bank of Canada move into its current tightening cycle, where we saw a 25 basis point hike and then two successive 50 basis point hikes. And that did cause a number of would-be home buyers to take a bit of a step back, to move to the sidelines. Now, that's not to say that those people won't eventually purchase a home. It's not that simple or binary. But what happens, and we've seen this in previous rate tightening cycles, we also saw it with the implementation of the OSFI 2 percentage point stress test back in 2018, is that people need time to recalibrate. And so if you're looking at a home at a certain price point before the rate tightening cycle began, well, you're still probably interested in purchasing a home, but you might have to adjust your expectations. Maybe buy a different home type at a lower price point, or maybe you look at a different part of the region you're looking to live in, or some combination thereof that'll mitigate the impact of higher borrowing costs, of higher monthly payments. And I think that's what we've certainly seen in March, April, and May, is that buyers have stepped back, and we've seen a month over month dip in transactions, when normally during the spring we actually would have seen sales trending upwards through May.
Do you feel that regardless of the impact of rate hikes, that if we don't address the undersupply of housing, that we're still going to continue to see that long-term trend upwards in pricing?
Yeah, I think certainly policymakers at all levels of government, but particularly at the provincial level, we just had an election, and housing was certainly one of the key points that was debated and covered off, and certainly we're moving towards municipal elections in Ontario later in 2022, and we can't take our eye off the supply issue, because whereas interest rate hikes can have a temporary impact on the demand for ownership housing, you have to look at the other drivers that underpin housing demand, whether we're talking about ownership or rental moving forward. We're experiencing extremely tight labor market conditions. So the great majority of people who want to work are working right now. So that's a key factor underpinning housing demand. And then on top of that, we're experiencing record level immigration. In the Greater Toronto Area and surrounding Greater Golden Horseshoe are Canada's single greatest beneficiaries of immigration into Canada, as people move here from all around the world looking to take advantage of our diversity of job opportunities and our social and cultural diversity. All of these people are going to require a place to live. And so it's important that policymakers understand that the impact of borrowing costs is going to be short term, but if we don't do something about supply, we're going to continue to see extremely tight market conditions and upward pressure on pricing in the long term. And that presents an economic development issue, because whereas companies and people want to move to the GTA for all it has to offer, if we can't affordably house people, potential workers, then some of those firms and some of those individuals are going to look elsewhere. And so long term, getting housing right is also getting economic development right as well.
So we have about 45 seconds before we go to the break. You mentioned getting housing right and some of those policy changes. In a nutshell, what are some of those policy changes that could rapidly increase supply?
Yeah, I think one of the things we really need to see is not just talking about supply in the aggregate. You'll often hear people saying, well, if you look at the total number of housing starts or new home sales, we're keeping up with the growth in the population. But really what we need to see is new supply across the housing continuum. So bridging that gap, especially between traditional single family homes and condominium apartments, so people can, move up the housing ladder, as it were, as their situation changes. They get married, you have a family, and also as you get older, that you can move from your larger single family home into something smaller that meets your needs, all within, the same or similar neighborhood.